Hey everyone, it's Mike. We're talking about Aniracetam today. This is from Nootropics Depot. This is 750 milligrams. It is a powerful nootropic specifically for concentration, for anti-anxiety, and for improving your mood. Three very important things, and what's beautiful about it is that it virtually has no side effects. So let this video be our guide. I know it's special, or at least for me, because I've been taking it personally for about 7 years and almost every single day with the exception of vacations. Really, the only times when I don't take it are when I run out and I need to order more, which speaks for itself. During this video, I'll talk about Aniracetam benefits, I'll talk about Aniracetam side effects, I'll talk about Aniracetam dosages, and be sure to stay tuned to the end of the video where I'll talk about what other nootropics can complement the use of Aniracetam, as it seems to have this wonderful synergy between Oxiracetam and Aniracetam, or when you mix it with Noopep, which I'll talk about. So again, be sure to stay tuned to the end of the video. So if you're unfamiliar with it, it is a racetam similar to Piracetam, Piracetam and Oxiracetam, but the difference is it is fat soluble, which means it supposedly does better in your system if you take it with a fat source, like you take it with some fish oil or a healthy fat. However, it's not been my experience that taking Aniracetam with a healthy fat is any different than taking Aniracetam just with water. But I think where most people go wrong is with the dosage of Aniracetam, because unlike Modafinil or unlike phenylpiracetam or Adrafinil, what's so is with Aniracetam, you need to take it every single day for at least 2 weeks to notice the benefits. And this is the reason why Aniracetam, in my opinion, is very underrated. What's so is you can purchase it in capsule form. You could also take it by powder, but powder is obviously very inconvenient unless you work from home, as you have to be with like a nice kitchen scale. So what's so is with the pill, pretty large pill. This is 750 milligrams. If you take it again in the powder form, it does not taste great, but it does not taste as bad as Piracetam. It is somewhat tolerable. And to ensure you're taking it properly, take it at least 2 times per day. I'm typically taking it twice per day, so that's 2 doses of 750 milligrams per day, once in the morning and once in the early afternoon, and I'm taking it along with a choline source. My favorite is alpha GPC. This here is alpha GPC. I typically take 300 milligrams 3 times per day of alpha GPC, and I typically purchase alpha GPC in the powder form because I take it in different doses depending on what I'm using it for. For example, pre-workout, alpha GPC can do some wonderful things to improve your aerobic capacity and to improve your power output, so I'll typically dose it higher, like 500 to 600 milligrams. But again, take your Aniracetam along with a good choline source at least twice per day for 2 weeks to start noticing the results. There are some studies showing that you're better off starting with an attack dose, and what an attack dose is when you're essentially taking more Aniracetam, like doubling up on the dose just for the first week to get it somewhat saturated in your system, kind of like creatine monohydrate. For those of you who are familiar with creatine monohydrate, you may be aware that if you take it in an attack dose similar to Aniracetam, like you dose 5 times as much creatine as you typically would just for the first week, then you'll get it in your system faster and you can afterwards just take it at a normal dose. So with Aniracetam, be sure you're taking it from a good vendor. I purchased mine from Nootropics Depot. I'm not necessarily saying they're the best vendor, but they seem to be somewhat reliable. They seem to always have the product in stock, so that's where I go to. But there are some other companies too which can definitely do a good job. Does it matter when you take your Aniracetam during the day? Does it matter if it's the morning, the early afternoon, or late at night? No, it's not been my experience. The most important thing is you hit your dose of at least twice per day. Even if you were to take it a few hours before bed, it is not at all stimulating, at least for me. There are some people who do report feeling somewhat more stimulated, a little bit more energetic, but again, it has not been my experience. All right, what are the uses of this wonderful nootropic? The first thing is anti-anxiety. A very commonly asked question is people say, Mike, what can I use for anxiety? Specifically in a social context. And there isn't anything better than Aniracetam. I've noticed that Ashwagandha KSM 66, it can help with anxiety, but not necessarily social anxiety. More so, Ashwagandha can just help you calm down like racing thoughts and be like a little bit more optimistic with the future versus having pessimistic thoughts about the future. But Aniracetam is more under that umbrella of like social context where you're having conversations, you're having to engage with people, you're having to network, you're having to build like a deep level of rapport and connect with people. That's where Aniracetam is really useful. And me, myself, I sell residential homes here in the Greater Toronto area, and it is all about conversations. It's all about about being a people person, connecting with people, and building good, valuable relationships. Which is a reason why when I got off Aniracetam, I definitely noticed it. The first time I took it, it was about 3 months, and I convinced myself it was not doing anything, but sooner or later, I noticed just being off of it that I had to repurchase it because I didn't feel as confident, I didn't feel as powerful in my conversations. Some other benefits you may notice is increased energy levels and increased motivation. It's similar to Piracetam in that it's not too effective, but it's definitely there. When you've gone through enough cycles, you can certainly tell that you're a little bit more driven, you're a little bit more ambitious, and you have a little bit more energy and excitement throughout the course of your day. However, this is not the reason why I purchased it. Specifically for me, it's the anti-anxiety, and it's my ability just to converse with people and have good word recall, and overall just be good in conversations, which is what makes Aniracetam special, at least for me. And that's been most people's experience. If you browse online, like I do a lot of reading about other people's reviews of nootropics, nobody really takes Aniracetam for like memory or for focus. For focus or for memory, there's definitely better things out there. Like if you look at Noopept or you look at Bacopa, if you look at the Synapsa Bacopa, that's very powerful for long-term memory, short-term memory, but not necessarily Aniracetam. It doesn't do too much that way. If you're a student, is it the best product? No, there's probably better things you can purchase, like Piracetam. You really like that one, especially for boring work, like reading material that you have no interest in whatsoever. Although like for entrepreneurs, for business people, for people who are looking to get their career to blossom, or even if you're somebody who's just not enjoying work so much but you have coworkers, this may be the one tool that can help you in ways you wouldn't expect. So I would recommend that you do check it out. Alright, let's talk about side effects. I can't think of many. There are people who report a bit of brain fog, but that is just because you're not dosing it right. With Aniracetam, it is a nootropic where you do have to find like your sweet spot. I'm not necessarily a believer in always taking the 750 milligrams, which is why I preferred taking it in a powder form until I found out what worked for me. But what's so is if you take too little with Aniracetam, you get a bit of brain fog, and if you take too much, you get a bit of brain fog. However, the brain fog, it's not that disrupting. It's not like the crash you experience after taking caffeine. It's somewhat tolerable. Other than that, it's quite special in that there's really no side effects. The only side effect you have is, okay, I've been taking this stuff for too long. Is it good for me? Is it bad for me? Is it going to affect me long term? It's interesting, people ask me when it comes to the racetams, like, do you have any fear about what they could do to you in the future? No, not really, because I've been taking them for 5 to 6 years now. I've not really noticed anything go bad. With nootropics, and I talk about this a lot if you've tuned into my other videos, there seems to be that effect of like the higher the benefit, the higher the risks and the higher the side effects. And because the benefits aren't too significant for Aniracetam, the side effects just aren't there, and I think that's something that most people would appreciate. The main reason why people don't take Aniracetam is because they've tried it and it did not work for them, and that just happens because you probably just didn't dose it right, because the stuff is very effective. Let's talk about other nootropics that could nicely complement the use of it. The first would be Oxiracetam. When you combine Aniracetam with Oxiracetam together, wow, you are just so productive, because Aniracetam helps you in that social context and with anxiety, but Oxiracetam is going to help you with your focus, your concentration, and it's going to help you endure those boring tasks and just be motivated throughout. So I like that a lot. But as well, just the other racetams, they seem to be very effective. This is Piracetam and this is Piracetam, and I take these as well because what's so is with the racetams, when you add them up and you take these four, which I really like, they are just so effective together. However, with Piracetam, that is not a nootropic you would take every single day. That is more for those days where you're sleep deprived or you really need it. So I will keep that out of this conversation and out of this stack because I'm using that in a completely different context. You will find though, if you're a Piracetam user or if you're a Modafinil user, like there's so many people who just resort to Modafinil and are taking it 2 to 3 times per day. It's been my experience that with Modafinil, it overpowers everything. It overpowers Rhodiola, Bacopa, Ashwagandha. It'll overpower Aniracetam and all your racetams. So you're just basically throwing them in the garbage. Modafinil is so strong that virtually all the effects of the racetams are negligible once you take it. So if you're a Modafinil user, I would say just save your money and save your time and don't be taking the racetams, as again, Modafinil is going to do all that and more. It is very effective, but the side effects are the reason why I do not take it every day. I'm probably taking Modafinil maybe once or twice per week just to get a shift in perspective sometimes and just to change in my work habits. For me it works, but of course there's weeks when I don't take it at all. Other than that though, in terms of the adaptogens, so Ashwagandha, Bacopa, Rhodiola, L-tyrosine, they work very well with Aniracetam. So what I do is with those nootropics, I use them very strategically. Like Rhodiola and Bacopa, I'm typically taking once per day during the middle of the day when I'm a little bit fatigued and I need a bit of alertness, almost need to have like that nap in the pill because that's what they do. And I have found that taking those adaptogens, specifically like Ashwagandha, Bacopa, and Rhodiola, along with my Aniracetam stack, does help me out. It's one of the nootropics that has been around for a considerable amount of time and has still made it. It's not just a trend like other nootropics. It's such that it's been around, it's like Piracetam, but it's a lot more effective than Piracetam. If you're somebody that has tried 1 or 2 cycles of Aniracetam and not noticed much, take it again, don't give up on it. I've noticed recently that for some reason, like, the powdered form is more effective than the capsule form, which I have no idea why. Could be due to absorption, efficiency. It could be due to my diet, and that's what's so is with the racetams, they're so variable between peoples. Some racetams work for some, but they won't work for others. Like Coloracetam or Facilracetam, I don't like, they've done nothing for me. But hope it was helpful, guys. Look forward to seeing you soon. Subscribe and stay tuned for my next video.